Hi, this is Bryce Adams with Trimble Forensics. Today we're going to talk about the workflow from taking your SX10 data with scans and survey data and pictures off of your T10 tablet or your TSC7 tablet from a thumb drive and onto your desktop so you can start the work process. So what I have here is I've already saved the project or the scene on a thumb drive. I placed it into a USB port on my desktop, and as you can see here, I've got the file, the NC crash test, that I want to basically take this file and start the work process in Reveal and or RealWorks if necessary. So all I'm going to do is take this file and I'm going to drag it onto my desktop. It's going to go through the process of download, and depending on the size of the file, the number of scans, so on and so forth, is the amount of time it's actually going to take to complete that process. After the process of taking the file from the USB drive, I'll simply close out of the USB drive and then work with what I've downloaded onto the desktop. It's real important that you take it off the USB drive and not drag it directly into either Reveal or RealWorks from the USB drive. Place it on the desktop so you can then back it up. Go ahead and close out of the USB drive, and you can see here my capture file is right here. The next thing I want to do is take the capture file and I want to right click on it and convert to a Job XML. What this is doing is basically virtually unzipping the file with all of the other data such as scans, pictures, and survey data, taking it, unzipping it so we can then use it later on in either RealWorks or Reveal. And again, depending on the size and number of scan setups, is going to really depend on how long this process will take. You can kind of see the converting file right up here on the upper left hand corner of the desktop. It's important also to know that you should have your capture converter file from the Trimble Forensics website when you do your capture download for your device, handheld device. That is also a part of that file extension that you've downloaded, so make sure that's on your desktop before you try to do this conversion. It's a free download. Now this particular scene had 3 scan setups and a couple scans within each one of those setups. As you can see here, they're downloading rather quickly. And what it's going to do for you, I'll kind of move this down a little bit. It's going to create this file right up here, also given the name NC crash test. What I like to do is take this file and move it over here while it's doing this download process. Move it over here with the original capture file. And as I get that moved, you can see that the conversion is now completed. You've extracted a JXL, which is also your scan data for your SX10. I place it all over here together to just kind of keep it organized. From here, what I like to do, since we can bring this directly into Reveal, I'll go ahead and open Reveal and start the process of bringing all that data, that capture file, into my Reveal software. So I'm going to go to Measurements and Import Data Log. The measurement import wizard is going to walk you through each one of these steps. It's important to know that you're going to grab the file already existing on your computer, which was what we just done. I'm going to hit Next. Again, it's going to be a Trimble Forensics capture file. I'm going to browse for that file on my desktop. And you can see that it is placed down here at the very bottom, NC crash test. Highlight it, open it, place it into the measurement file browser window, and hit Next. Once again, depending on the size of the file, is going to depend on how long it takes for it to proceed through the next import phase or wizard phase. Now what it's going to do here is it's going to ask you, okay, what information do you want to be set up over here in the layer system? It's going to automatically create layers for you. You can control exactly what style of layers you want and how you want them to be seen in that layer manager over here on the side, on the right hand side. So I'm happy with all of those. I'm going to go ahead and hit Next. And my measurement log name from my survey data is going to be called measurement log NC test, crash test. If I want to change that, I can change that. And then again, I'm going to go to the measurement log properties and automatically assign point colors. If I want to change those point colors, I can do that now, or I can do it later, however you'd like it. This is going to place the baseline at the 0, 0, or the middle of your canvas on your reveal scene. And as soon as you hit finish, you'll see that it's going to give you an elevation adjustment. And this is basically a warning, basically saying that there's negative measurements, and if you're working with a ground plane on reveal, some of those measurements might be underneath that ground plane, which is set at defaulted at 0. So it's going to ask you, do you want to take no action, lower the ground plane, or raise your elevations up? We're going to take no action because I'm not working with a ground plane, so I'm going to hit continue. And you can kind of see here below this little heads up that my survey data is actually fallen in. My control points, my ground control points, and some of my survey shots that I took with the SX10 has actually fallen into place. It's now loading the point cloud, the scan data, bringing that in next, which again, depending on the size, is going to basically control how long this process takes. Typically, it's anywhere between 30 seconds to maybe 2 minutes. And now you can see here what was brought in. The layers are set up. This big black square right here is actually your grid. Again, we assign that to come in as well. And if I zoom in here, you can actually see how the grid actually places itself. It's relatively a pretty big scene. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to come over here and shut off in my layer manager, shut off my grid tool. And you can kind of see that the entire scan is in place. Inside the scan, you can also see the survey data that we brought in, and as well as each one of those pictures. They all come in together, no extra work in the background. Those are all the pictures that we took with the survey data with the SX10, our setups, setup locations, and then the pictures of the vehicles at final rest. Behind that, you can kind of see we have the scan in place. Again, there was no registration. We did do 3 setups and scans with inside those setups. We did a core scan for contextual purposes at each one of these setups, and then we also did fine-tuning scans inside there. You can kind of see the differences here with the number of densities that we have. So we have a higher density than what we have outside of this. Again, no registration. It was all done through survey practices. We have the ability to come in over here and changing from true color to grayscale if we'd like. We also have the ability to come down here to color-coded intensity. Elevation, which is really nice to be able to tell what the topography is of the ground. And I can control the point size quality of each one of these things as well. So I can come over here to the size of each one of those points and increase in the gain intensity as far as the density and fill in a little bit of the gaps and still get a good context of it. Drop down to top down off, you can kind of see there's your, again, there's all your scan. That's all in grayscale. Photos are still there. We have an attachment of a tower that was approximately 2,500 feet away. I used that as one of my control points. Again, you can see that the zoomed in camera with the SX10 is identifying that, and we do have a little bit of scan data about 2,500 feet away from that shot. So again, you can kind of see the power of that SX10's camera system. Okay, so the backside of this is if we wanted to do some cleanup in here, so meaning we want to take some of this foot traffic out of this controlled crash scene, and maybe in the case of a crash scene, maybe the evidence eradications, I should say the EMS personnel walking through the scene as you're scanning. We can actually do this in RealWorks. So what I'm going to do with these scans now that I have my JXL, I'm going to pop into RealWorks real quick for Trimble Forensics RealWorks. You can see that I already have it open. I'm going to simply drag my JXL file that I extracted from my .capture file and just click, drag, and drop. And as soon as I do that, you can kind of see the loading process is taking place with the status bar down at the bottoms of this screen. And again, this will take a few seconds, up to maybe a minute. And the load is now complete. And you can kind of see here, there's your scan again. You can kind of see that it's brought it in. Again, it's in grayscale, so if I want to go to true color, Inside RealWorks, I can go to the status bar right here. It's a little task bar on the side. Look for the colors, and I'll go to true color. I can also again choose with color coded intensity, which is it's a good indicator of what type of returns you're getting. It's the entire scan. Again, 3 setups. And we also have the ability of going 2 pixel. Now on here, what I would probably do from this point is I know that I have some foot traffic, and what I really want to do is I want to take out everything except the ground plane on this. So you can kind of see the foot traffic in there. I want to get rid of some of that noise. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into production mode up here in the upper left hand corner. It says registration. Hit the drop down box and go into production. And when you do that, you lose your scan. Don't panic. We're going to come down here to the workspace on the left hand side. There's a little light bulb that's turned off. I'm going to turn that light bulb on, and there's your scan again. You can see the one thing you've lost in the production mode is the survey data that's come in. That's all right. We're not going to work with that right now anyway. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to select the project cloud. So highlight that by clicking on it. You can see what it does is it puts a wireframe around that entire scan. Okay, I'm going to specifically focus in on the foot traffic here. And the next process is I'm going to go into my edit mode and come over here to where it says segmentation, sampling, auto classify outdoors and indoors. This is where you can actually start segmentations, cleaning the data up. If you want to do frame data and segmenting it out, you can do that. What we're going to do is auto classify outdoor. So I'm going to click on that, and everything in the checkbox is going to go ahead and classify for us all these items. And I'm going to go ahead and hit extract. And now again, this is going to take up time for the software to recognize and file or classify each one of these items as it sees it. So you can see the progress bar taking place down here. And then this can take up to 2 to 3 minutes. Lots of points here. We're talking probably 30 million points for this entire scan from the SX10. So we'll give it time to go ahead and process here. Okay, now you can kind of see that the processing for auto classification again took about 2 to 3 minutes, and you can see that the scan is now a different color. And what it's done here is, if you notice down here on the workspace, it's actually created different folders, different layers, if you will. And you can kind of see the light bulbs are turned on ground, power lines, high vegetation, and anything remaining in there, like the people, you see everything in there in white, has actually broke that out and removed it. Okay. And you can kind of see all we see there is the classifications for the high vegetation and the ground, and basically the track area where we did the controlled crash. From this point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight the ones that I want to keep. Let's just say I want to keep ground, hold my control button down and select power lines and high vegetation. All 3 of these items I want to go ahead and I want to go up to export in underneath my home tab. So I go up to export, hit the drop down box and say export selections. So I click on export selections, and it's going to give me at a location. Where do I want to save this? Well, I'm going to go ahead and place this in my NC crash test, which is right here, the folder that it's built for. And I'm going to go ahead and call it ground classification. So that way I can identify that it is going to be a ground classification. I've cleaned that ground up and extracted out all that other data. File type is going to be an E57. So I hit save. And you can see it's going to ask you want export intensities and RGB colors. Yes, I do. And I'll simply export that and let it spin for a second. And it's going to go ahead and export that E57 out as we see it. And you can see that it's done now. I'll minimize the screen. And now what I want to do is I want to bring that E57. You can kind of see here in my NC crash test, there's my ground classification E57 file, which is the scan that I wanted. Minimize that. And I'm going to go back into my Reveal software. Okay, I'm going to go to top down on, so you can kind of see this. And what I'm going to do real quick is I'm going to go ahead and turn off my visibility for my scan and my layers. and I want to import that E57. So now I'm going to go to import point cloud. Again, the file type is an E57 like we exported out of RealWorks. Hit browse, go look for the folder that I saved it in. See if I can find it here. There it is, ground classification E57. And now you can see it's in the select file. This is the real important section right here. It's going to want to know where do you want to place that scan. Well, we have a measurement log in here, which is cloud coordinates that are relative to the measurement log for NC crash test. You can see that it's this measurement log right here over in layers. I want that cloud to coordinate with this measurement log. So I've got to make sure that I check that box. And then after I check the box, I start the import phase. And it's bringing in that classification ground. You can kind of see the countdown bar as it progresses through. It's going to let you know the number of scan setups, or one scan together, and it's going to tell you that it's now 11 million points from that SX10 data, and hit finish. And now what you've got here is you've got the ground. Let me turn off the note markers over here in layers so you can see it a little bit better. You can kind of see now that it's gotten the ground classifications that we asked for. Let's put it in ground scale, grayscale. And you can kind of see here that now the cleanup process of that foot traffic has now taken place. I still have the original raw scan. I can turn it on real quick and you can kind of see there's the original. Okay, that's what we've taken out. And now let's turn off the original. And you can kind of see right there is your ground scan. It did fall into a layer. The layer is called ground classification. If I want to create a new folder in that layer called ground scan classification, I can give it that name, hit OK, and then we have that layer, and simply grab that scan and drag it into that folder. So now you've basically organized where that's going to actually sit in your layer system. And then that way, if you want to ever turn it off and then maybe turn on your raw, you can do that as well. Okay. And you can do this again for whatever inside the scan, inside RealWorks. You can take the cruisers out individually through segmentation, bring them into RealWorks, or I'm sorry, into Reveal, the same way we just brought in the ground scan.